And good evening, everybody, and happy Monday here on this edition here of the Man of Steel podcast. We, of course, yours truly, Charles Prodigy, Richey right now, as we are in COVID formation, as Dia Davis would like to say. Not trying to steal anything from you guys, but just passing along, and definitely great late right here. We're actually, with that being said, one day, less than a day away from training camp opening tomorrow across the NFL. Got some guidelines that were shared to Tom Pelissero from the NFLPA. We'll get into it a little bit later on. And plus, I don't know if anyone got a chance to catch yesterday afternoon or last evening on replay. NFL Network started its top 100 players of 2020 from last season. They did the first 30, 71 through 100. We get into those rankings in just a little bit later on. But also here right now, what was your thoughts so far? So far, there has only been one Steeler, Cam Heyward. I'll announce his ranking in a moment. And right now, the leader of the pack so far with the most is the Eagles with 5. So they got 5 players in the top 30. Yeah, if you guys want to feel free and you want to chime in and join the podcast here, you're more than welcome to do so. You can simply join me on Instagram Live, which is at Man of Steel Nation is where I'm streaming from. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey for the Man of Steel podcast on Twitter and now SoundCloud, proud to say, which you'll be hearing my podcast being put on that platform as well. So both at Man of Steel CJR for Twitter and SoundCloud. Plus, you could also check me out, like I just said, for my Instagram, at Man of Steel Nation. If you guys want to look me up on Facebook, if you guys do, press the like. If you want to search me by follow handle, it is at Man of Steel Nation. Same thing as Instagram. Hope everyone is doing well so far, staying safe, getting healthy. More importantly, first and foremost. And like I said, it's definitely been trying to squeeze. A ship in the bottle, so to speak. With this whole COVID right now. And we see a lot of the difficulties that have been emerging. Take a look at baseball right now. The Miami Marlins, who actually just took 2 out of 3, won the first series against the Philadelphia Phillies to start off the season this year. And look at where they're at right now. And right now, their home opener is being delayed. They got quarantine right now. And you see how serious this thing continues to get, how it continues to spike. At the same time, too, I truly believe, too, despite the crazy times we're in, I feel like the owners, the executives, they feel like they owe it to not only their players, but more so their leagues and their CBAs, their collective bargaining agreements. Should we agree or disagree on that or not? But that's generally what it is. I think around this time, we would usually be seeing the Baseball Hall of Fame right now in Cooperstown, New York, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, obviously, that's going to be postponed this year with COVID, I want to say. But, yeah, this is usually a lot of things where things are happening right now. It hasn't been one of the most exciting years, in recent months, including a summer. But, people are still managing to get by, managing to try and adapt. And we just never know what's going to be happening over here. But I do believe this right now when we take a look at it. And as we try to move along here, just the only thing is everyone's just got to hold themselves accountable at the end of the day. And I just feel with everything, it's just a lot of time, it's a lot of patience, but at the same time, too, I think if anything, we are proving that we can adapt right now. I know one of the biggest things that kind of definitely stirred a lot of emotions late last night, I was looking at former legendary tight end and head coach of the Chicago Bears, my hometown Chicago, Mike Ditka, and he doesn't seem to be really too enthused about guys wanting to take a knee. This is a very prideful guy right here, understandably, from his position and how much he's had respect for the game, playing it. And then not only that, to get the opportunity that really anyone has and to make money off it. And basically, he just flat out and said, like, if you're not willing to stand and like abide by the country's rules, just basically get the heck out of the country. And I gotta just say, that was just definitely disappointing to hear at that time. But I just, I just really feel like at this time, it just, what, people, we cannot expect everybody to agree with how you and I would feel. We can't force it upon anyone. If anything, I applaud someone like the Pittsburgh Pirates displaying Black Lives Matters in their left field area, I believe it was. So, I mean, that's the thing we got to realize. At the end of the day, Black lives and other people who've been going through racial suppression right now, we have to share a little bit of love to them as well. And don't get me wrong, I'm always going to be proud of the men who sacrificed their butts for this country and put a lot of their lives on the line just as much. I mean, when people are trying to get racial issues addressed, or people in the men in blue at the end of the day. Listen, I know it's causing a lot of mixed emotions right now. You see a little bit of division, but I feel like we could still do this together. And if anything that we learned from the Pittsburgh franchises, whereas the Steelers and Pirates over the years, we are family at the end of the day. That's how we got to look at it. And I don't think we're going to keep getting any further by constantly just nabbing at one another. We just cannot. But anyway, I'm going to just save that for another day. But in case those of you who are tuning in right now, we are on the Meta Steel podcast right now. And we're getting ready to discuss right now the newest tweaks and updates as it regards to training camp, which is outlined by the CBA. Remember, the whole deal got approved this past Friday on the 24th. I mean, the NFL and the executives and GMs were willing to work on something with salaries and opt-outs. NFLPA executives felt comfortable enough to pass this on to the union representatives of all the NFL teams. And so far, it's been a 29-3 vote on Friday. As we're taking a look at Ian Rappaport, who could be actually followed on Twitter at RapSheet. And I just feel like that was a very good sign right there. I mean, yeah, you still look at something with the Marlins and baseball, and you just start to look at, well, how are we going to get a season coming in here? I just also wanted to say welcome to the Instagram stream. I got McGee Ever Brothers. I just want to say thank you very much for joining the Instagram live stream here. Talk some NFL. We're talking some Steelers right now. As usual, as you catch me here on Mondays and Wednesdays, typically at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Get right into some of the reports before we get into the training camp guidelines. Mark Bali of The Athletic reported that the Steelers announced their first tested COVID-19 or quarantine player. This was a former XFL player from the LA Wildcats, Arian Springs, who was a defensive back out of Oregon in 2018. Now, over his time in his NFL career, the former undrafted rookie went to camp for the Kansas City Chiefs back in 2018. Then, of course, followed by the Browns, Saints, Raiders, and Chargers. Now, in case everyone is wondering, what COVID-19 reserve list is, for any of you that is hearing that term, usually, when we hear, IR or reserve and injury list, usually I want to say it's up to 8-10 games I gotta wait. So usually around the 10th game is when they're clear to come back, I want to say. But for this right here, and Pro Football Talk even goes a little bit more detail. Let's give everyone a quick little update on what this is. Basically, it says, plain and simple, with this, the list doesn't specify that a player has tested positive, as it could also be for one who is quarantined after being contacted with an infected person. Teams are not allowed to specify, so they can't really say what it is exactly. They want to keep that confidential. Players may be activated from the list when they are healthy. And of course, what's one of the biggest consistent themes we usually hear about that when trying to be healthy. Usually a lot of sports right now that are returning, you usually got to produce 2 negative tests. And that's the thing with this whole COVID right now. And I feel like the season is going to start on time. I mean, it's still a highly debatable question if they're going to finish. I mean, even like Bob Pompiani of 93.7 The Fan, and of course, KDKA and CBS Pittsburgh even point out, I mean, like, why do players or the NFL do not go on bubbles? I mean, one interesting point they did point out, you got to remember about with football, one of the most obvious reasons, and very clever by there, you can follow him on Twitter and Instagram, @KDPomp. And basically, like he was saying that you got a larger group of people traveling together. And that's part of the problems right there. And plus, there's going to be a lot more contact when playing in the game of football when it comes especially to like tackling or hitting people. So those are the things right there why it's not as simple as trying to create a bubble environment because you have to accommodate a whole lot more people. I mean, for those times. But then again, too, I mean, at the same time, too, what about when players got to go check out and settle in hotels? I mean, these are the realities of the COVID environment, I mean, that we are living in and what athletes have to go through. I think of anything, like I mentioned to Brian Diarlo when he was on my show about last week, I really do believe this is a big victory for the players' union, considering the fact that you hardly get anything in your favor at all as a union when trying to, I mean, like bang heads and get stuff done. I mean, this is a union who hasn't had the best luck in negotiating. But at the same time, too, I think the executives and the owners, they don't want to be like too stubborn either. They don't want to keep pointing their foot down on like what they can and cannot do. I mean, at some point, you're going to continue to break more trust barriers at some point. And I think just anything in life, something has to give. So let's go into the stuff that's outlined right now for training camp. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, he knows the following breakdown training camp for the NFLPA. And here are the dates right now. July 28th to the 31st, PCR tests and virtual meetings. The first 2 days are COVID testing. Day 3, they get a break. And day 4 is where they resume COVID testing. So once again, July 28th for the 31st, the first 2 days, you get COVID testing. The third day, you do not. And then the fourth day, you usually do. Then it goes in from there, August 3rd through August 11th, which would be at that point next Monday, basically, a week from today through the following Tuesday. Acclimation period of 60 minutes of weight room and on-field conditioning. SEC coaches and walkthroughs for 60 minutes of the first 4 days and 75 minutes for the final 4 days. Then August 12th through August 16th, middle of August, ramp-up period where they get a little bit more intensified. First practice starts off at 90 minutes with 15-minute increase up to a daily maximum of 2 hours. Remainder of daily 3.5-hour on-field time limited applied to walkthrough. Also, between August 12th and August 13th, helmets and approved protective shirts permitted right now they start practicing with. And then the 14th to the 16th, non-pad practice days. And then they get an off day on the 15th. Now, usually for all teams to begin pad practicing, here's a big thing when people are wondering, that's usually August 17th. But one interesting note right here, and players, the only exception to the rule who could start prior to August 17th, would be the Chiefs and the Texans. Because remember, they start off the opener of the season. Since the Kansas City Chiefs are the defending Super Bowl champions, they're going to be in a playoff rematch, so to speak, against the Houston Texans. So they could start as early as August 14th in that case. So they get a little bit more earlier time due to the slight turnaround right there. Usually once we hear the 53-man rosters, remember, this is the final year, it'll be 53 before it jumps up 2 more spots next year. That's where we'll start to see usually the teams who don't open up on a Thursday night. They'll have to start reporting immediately and start getting more intense workouts going into the opening of their season. Also, too, as we look at it right now, and one other thing when we look at it, as regards to any teams are opening up on a Monday night as opposed to Sunday or Thursday, or Sunday games, I should say, excuse me. Teams who are slated to play on Monday night, such as the Steelers and Giants, they will need a full week of rest in between that time. I mean, where they'll need like a must receive. Clubs that play on Monday of week 1 must receive 7 days off. Clubs Thursday or Sunday, 6 days off. But it's just a little bit different. Don't be a little confused by what I just said right now. The pad practicing is just a little slightly different, and where the Chiefs and Texans could do it as far as August 14th. And so there you have it right there. So some interesting tidbits right there. I like the way they're spreading it out. Because I remember one of the ideas, too, when they first started doing this, I mean, they were talking about at least every day for the first couple of weeks once they started getting this COVID thing figured out, as far as like how they're going to get players acclimated. I mean, that was one of the biggest concerns when you're trying to adapt to an environment and trying to make sure, too. You also got some stipends, too. And I think right now it's between $150,000 to $350,000 right there, where they can at least get a portion of their salary advanced to them. And that's, I think, the real interesting things right there. So the players' union and the athletes themselves, they definitely feel like they got an insurance policy. They got something to kind of soften the blow in case anything were to happen to them throughout the season. And I just feel right now, at this point, I mean, the NFL has always been seen the one be calm, cool, and collected throughout this whole thing. I mean, we can even argue back to like how they're going to do a draft this year. Well, they were able to do the first ever virtual draft. And I got to tell you, I had a blast watching it. I mean, just off my computer or tuning into the ESPN Plus app, or however, if you had NFL Network, whatever. I think they did a whale of a job this season. They didn't need to have players come across the stage and shake the commissioner's hand. It was just cool. You could still see them and their families' reactions from different shots, whether they're doing Zoom calls with their new coaches and family members or their teammates that they're about ready to get introduced to. They found a way to make it work. And I got to tell you right now, let me ask everybody, did anyone get a chance to watch any baseball this weekend? I did. You know what? I mean, one of the reasons why I watched, I mean, since I'm from Chicago, I was watching the Chicago Cubs, too. They're on their debut of their new network, Marquee Sports Network here in Chicago. So they're going to have, like, their own coverage and some sports content along the way, but no other Chicago team is going to be on there playing games. So that was a nice little debut on the day of the opener of the season. And I got to tell you, I think baseball, I mean, just watching without any fans in attendance, I mean, you saw a lot, like, you know, some areas do, like, the sound effects with fans. I mean, you can hear, like, a little bit of distant fans. They're watching, like, nearby in the proximity, like what Wrigley Field. You had the rooftop owners right there. I mean, people who purchase seats in the rooftops were still able to watch across the street and still had a fun time watching the game. And I still found a way to keep it gauged. Not only that, too, and also other things aside from, like, sponsors or banners, like, hovering over the seats, you also saw areas, too, like the Chicago White Sox, for example, and some other teams where they're having cut-out cardboard fans in, like, the seats, like, that are close by behind home plate. I got to tell you, I think baseball definitely hit this one out of the park this weekend. I got to say it was a decent rating. I mean, it was just nice to see something back. But when you hear something like with the Miami Marlins and now the Phillies, I mean, you still got to be a little bit more cautious to the win. I mean, there's some people who are edgy right now, how they're going to make this work. And it just, one of the things that just continues to press the issue the most is just being away from their families while doing this. I mean, I got to tell you, for athletes who are trying to make this work and still trying to compete, I got to be honest with you, I don't care how disciplined you are, don't expect a lot of people to want to bite the bullet and want to be isolated for such a long time. There's gonna be some guys that want to get out and get a breather. But of everything that's going on, I mean, what other choices do we have right now to get things, I mean, back to normal? At least try and see some progression here. And I really believe what's going to end up happening, it's going to be like triggering alarm systems. I mean, kind of like when you watch in cartoons, when you watch where people are sneaking in the facilities, what usually ends up happening, there's usually that little red security line, a security beam right there. People try to avoid crossing over it so they won't trigger their alarm. That's kind of like the case with COVID-19 in a way. I mean, it's pretty much almost like walking on ice. And you're just trying to take it slowly, smoothly, without trying to slip up. And that's the best way I could say. But I do believe if it's usually about 105 degrees or more, I want to say, that's usually when you have to you have to self-quarantine. You have to make sure you produce 2 negative tests, if I am saying that correctly. But that's what it really boils down to at the end of the day for all sports, including the game of football right now. So let's get into the NFL Network top 100 player list. We just saw the first 30 unveiled. And let's go ahead and take a look at the list once again. And here we go, the list that we had for that evening that debuted yesterday. I think more should be coming out throughout the week. And here we go. Let's take a look at it right now as I am opening it up. All righty. So here's the leaderboard for the first 30. You got the Eagles leading the pack right now with 5, followed by the Ravens at 3. Then you got the Raiders, Cowboys, Saints, Seahawks, and Cardinals tied for third with 2. The rest of the league has 1 apiece so far, pretty much. There's a few teams missing that are not in there, such as the Green Bay Packers. I mean, in that regard. And, of course, the New York Jets, I mean, to name a few. So you still got a few teams in there who did not crack it, including the Indianapolis Colts. And so on, or even the Carolina Panthers. This is where we have it right now. We had 30 in there. You had Cam Heyward right now, who cracked in at number 84 on this list here, defensive tackle for the Steelers, who had a decent year. I mean, he slipped down a little bit in the sacks, but I mean, at the same time, too, I mean, he's getting older. And, I mean, he's definitely starting to become a better player towards the end of his career. But when you look at, where he was at about this time last year, he was ranked 88th. So he moves up 4 spots than he was a year ago. I'm trying to see, where he was 2 years ago as far as on this top 100 list. As we looked at it for that, he was 59. No, excuse me. That was someone else. Excuse me. We had a totally different person. He was 48th 2 years ago, where he really had a hot peaking season that year. He had 8 sacks back in 2017, the prior year. And just to see him drop 41 spots, I mean, the next year, I mean, which was last season, and then just move up 4 spots this year. I mean, this is a guy right here who I will probably put him somewhere in the 70s if you were to ask me. Here's how the first 10 look at so far. So take a look. We got outside linebacker Levante David of the Bucks, followed by tight end Darren Waller of the Vegas Raiders, guard Brandon Brooks of the Eagles, safety Buda Walker of the Cardinals, running back Chris Carson of the Seahawks, defensive end Frank Clark of the Chiefs, center for the Eagles, Jason Kelsey. That's our second one right there in case you guys are keeping score. Al Robinson of the Bears, wide receiver. Darius Slay, their third one, who was a cornerback for the Eagles. Defensive tackle Grady Jarrett. And there you have it. And so at 90 it was Kyler Murray, quarterback of the Cardinals. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp of the Rams. Middle linebacker Jalen Smith of the Cowboys. Quarterback Josh Allen of the Bills. Then you got A6 Marlon Humphrey, cornerback of the Ravens. Fourth one for the Eagles, Zach Ertz at tight end. And then at A4, defensive tackle Cam Heyward. Followed by middle linebacker of the Vikings, Eric Kendricks. Ryan Ramczyk, offensive tackle of the Saints. And DK Metcalf of the Seahawks. And then for the final 10, we got Myles Garrett, defensive end of the Browns. Calais Campbell, defensive end of the Jaguars from the previous year, who is now with the Ravens. Then you got Tyron Smith, offensive tackle of the Cowboys. Keenan Allen, who seems to proclaim himself as the AFC's West best receiver of the Chargers. Marshawn Lattimore, quarterback of the Saints. Free safety Earl Thomas of the Ravens. Offensive tackle, again of the Ravens, Ryan Stanley. The fifth and final player in the top 30 for the Eagles, defensive tackle Fletcher Cox. Running back Josh Jacobs of the Vegas Raiders. And last but not least, Jarrell Casey. And I just feel like a guy, I mean, when we look at a guy like Cam Heyward, I mean, who's done a decent amount in his career, making the Pro Bowl, I mean, like 2 times between 2017 and 2019. He had an off year in 2018. I mean, still, I mean, this is a guy right here who at the end of the day, right now, I think he just deserved a little bit of a higher spot, if you ask me. And that's just my opinion. But I mean, like right there, I mean, you look at a guy like Jarrell Casey, who had 5 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. I don't see that one right there. To be honest with you, I think he should have been in that spot. I think the only thing what I could probably look at right there, he had 5 fumble recoveries, so he had 5 takeaways right there. Well, you had Cam Heyward, who had just about as much. I just don't see where that one came into the equation right there. Actually, it was 2, excuse me. So he had 1 more takeaway than Heyward did. And last season, he had 2 for that year off fumble recovery. Well, he had Cam Heyward in 2019. He only had 1 for the whole year. I just feel like a guy right there. He just has a lot more. I mean, to offer. I mean, those situations. So I'm going to be real interested to see like where Mika Fitzpatrick fits into this right now. So let's go right ahead and get right into it. Fair or foul right now, topic number 1. Mika Fitzpatrick, what do you think the over-under on him for his rating of 2019 for the 2020 season? When we look at it, I mean, when you look at all the guys who performed right there, obviously a game-changing trade. I mean, for that year, for the Steelers. I mean, right off the heels when they lost Ben Roethlisberger for the season, later on that night, they go ahead and make the trade. Finally trading a first-round pick they had in a long time. And I got to tell you right now, I think Nathan Fitzpatrick for the money that it's worth, ranked 10th in takeaways, interceptions with 5. And he also had 1 fumble recovery, so he had 6 for the year at that point, which put him tied for second in the league. And I really would like to hear your thoughts right now. So let's go and do the over-under on a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick. Over-under, I'll say 50. I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna say probably like somewhere around, maybe like in the top 30 for a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick. Yeah, he did start to slow down as the season wound down, but at the same time too, I mean, he was so valuable in helping change the moxie of that team. I mean, of course, you had Joe Hayden there for the last couple of years, but I mean, that year they finally, even before like little by little last year, where they were taking interceptions, returning to the house on short distance takeaways, this was a year where you saw some more where it was going like the length of the house. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, he had the longest of the year. I think it was against, I want to say, the Colts, I believe it was, back in November. And this guy right here, I got to believe, I mean, including too, I believe he was an All-Pro this past year. And for what he was able to do, I mean, in 2019, which he was a first-time All-Pro, that was his first time, his All-Pro honor in his second year. I got to believe he's going to be somewhere in the top 30. Fair or foul that he'll be in the top 30. I'm going to say fair on that one. I think that sounds about right. I mean, of course, when you had other guys too, I mean, in that year, so I think for the most part, at the same time too, I think it was a guy from the Patriots who actually got the Defensive Player of the Year for that. As we looked at it there. And I'm really interested to see what happens for this season. Usually a fun time right here because usually when everything is normal, usually an indication that, I mean, football is right around the corner here. I mean, the things are going into preseason, Hall of Fame. Of course, that's not going to be happening this year, but you see what it's doing right now for that time. And it was Stephon Gilmore, the New England Patriots. There we go. My mind escaped me. Denied Aaron Donald from winning it 3 straight years. No player, I think, in the history of the Defensive Player of the Year or has had for 3 straight years. And it's just a really interesting time right now. I mean, Lawrence Taylor and, of course, when you look at a guy like Aaron Donald, I think are the only two – no, excuse me, and J.J. Watt are the only 3 people to win it back-to-back years, the NFL Defensive Player of the Year award. Also, let's get into another fair or foul topic. Fair or foul topic number 2. Should the Steelers catch lightning in the bottle? They have a terrific season. And let's just say if they do go ahead and win the Super Bowl, which I have faith they could still do. Aside from Ben Roethlisberger, but Kevin Colbert, 21 seasons, he decides to ride off into the sunset. I will say fair on that one. Definitely I could see that happening. That's Bob Papiani on his show, the Bob Papiani Show on Saturdays, which you can catch every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time on 937 The Fan. And he definitely could see that. But then again, don't be surprised if he decides to go year to year. You got a lot of people thinking he'll probably go off somewhere like Carolina. I mean, I doubt that. But you got to believe, too, at the point, the work that he's been putting in, all the grinds, being with this organization for so many years, that you got to start to think he's starting to finally whine to be selling in. He needs to, I mean, he's pretty much done all he can. There's a huge reason, I feel, why he's not committing long term. And I just feel right now with Colbert, what ends up happening is that, I mean, I got to believe at some point he's looking for the way out. He's going to do what he can to help make sure his team is in a good position. If anything, I mean, if he does, he'll have the second most Super Bowls, I mean, as a GM in the history, aside from Dick Haley, who had in the 70s. I mean, of course, Stan Rooney has the all-time record with 6 when he was briefly a GM before he became president and stuff over the team and chairman later on. But still, I think that will just be a remarkable effort right there. And I would not have a problem with that if he decided to walk away and decided to just hang it up and just move on. I mean, it's just so many times right now. I mean, you talk about just not only being away from your family, but you talk about the health inconsistencies. And that's another one, too. And let's get to that right now. Fair and foul topic number 2. Steelers will be facing some salary cap hell in 2021. I'll say foul only because right now we're at $198.5 million. And if it were to drop for the following season, we're talking about close to $24 million. That's a lot of time where Kevin Colbert and Omar Khan, along with Art Rooney II, could think about upcoming in the future, how they could prepare. I mean, at that point, if it does drop to $175 million, I mean, when we currently look at the Steelers right now, where they're at, when you look at the top 51 contracts, I mean, aside from, the offseason training camp roster right now, as we look at it, Pittsburgh Steelers at this point, top 51 that really count, they got about $4.107033 million in cap space. I mean, that's for the ones, for the important players. But right now, as it currently stands, with everybody that's on there, including the offseason roster, they're about over $19.5 million in the hole. So it's a lot. And right now, I mean, I think that would explain reasons why they haven't been able to sign a lot of their draft picks just yet. Why they were taking their time. I'm going to have to say, like I said, I'm going to go foul on that one because let's just wait and see. There could still be some sponsors at the last minute, some TV deals that come into effect with COVID right now. I mean, you got to think right now. I mean, if we're not going to hardly be able to watch the game in person, there's going to be a lot more people watching at home. And I just have a hard time believing it's going to drop that significantly. But that's like the worst it could do as it's being reported out there by Pro Football Talk and by Bob Pompeani of 93.7 The Fan. But I will say this, last but not least, topic of fair or foul, Ben Roethlisberger will be cut the following season in 2021. I mean, which right there, I mean, if they do like a cut on Ben Roethlisberger, if they're able to release him, I mean, at this point, I think right now for a guy like Ben, what they were saying is basically look at, they could save about $19 million in cap money by cutting him next year. And to be honest with you, I don't see why not. I mean, even if they win the Super Bowl with Ben Roethlisberger this year, I gotta think, he'll get the luxury, decide and get the respect if he wants to retire in that. I mean, it's just a lot of things right now, and plus, I mean, when you're trying to guys who are on like their final years of their contract, like Bud Dupree, Vince Williams, Vance McDonald, right now those guys more in particular, some of those guys may have to go, and I would have no problem if Vance McDonald had to move on or Vince. I think Vince Williams has done has served his time in the black and gold uniform, made some remarkable contributions, made some good stops. I mean, as a middle linebacker. And I just gotta believe right now, this roster. I mean, we're kind of like expecting somewhat of a reshuffle, closer rebuild at some point anyway. This is a pretty decent. I mean, like a lot of guys you got on here, it's gonna be hard to envision seeing them stick together here. So, but like I said, I'm gonna hold my breath. Let's just wait and see what happens, how drastic the cap is, and we'll see. I mean, hopefully it won't be as hard as times as it's being predicted. So thank you again for tuning in for the Men of Steel podcast. Once again, you can catch me here on every Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey for the Men of Steel podcast on SoundCloud at Men of Steel CGR, at Men of Steel CGR on Twitter, and at Men of Steel Nation on Instagram. As always, leave you. Don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.